Hello everyone, welcome to the final practice session of the 2024 calendar, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix FP3 session. Let's get underway. I say let's get underway, it looked like took a bit of time for everybody to come out on track. I thought initially it was a telemetry bug, but actually it does look as if Aston Martin and Alpine are the only cars to be out on track right now. So a very interesting one for sure. I do apologise if you can hear any background noise in the UK. It is currently pretty stormy, so yeah, if there is a little bit of a weird sound in the background, that will be why. Now I'm just trying to sort out the microphone to make sure it's on a good volume, and we should be good to go and continue the session. Alright, so some details as I prepare my notes. We've got Verstappen and Doohan yesterday struggling. Can they try and fix their issues from yesterday in today? Verstappen struggling once again with oversteer with that RB20. Jack Doohan just trying to get themselves used to Formula 1, so it's a bit more understandable from their side. They're on a soft tyre along with their teammate at this stage of the session, and they are the only cars out on track, so they've got that clean air. Also, Williams, they were having issues, not only Verstappen and Doohan, many others were as well, but Williams are having a few issues. That was Colapinto getting damage in the final sector as they rode over the curb, I believe, and then it was Alex Albon who had a gearbox integration issue as they were stuck in third gear for a long time in that session, so they had to go into the pit lane for a while and come out later on. Hopefully that has been all fixed overnight and we are ready to go once again, and they can maybe have a look at scoring some points. Now, as I was saying yesterday, it's very, very crucial for qualifying to be good around here if you want to get a good result. As we saw many drivers on the soft tyres and medium tyres as well. They were mostly on the soft tyres trying to get those quali runs in. It looks like they're going to be doing a similar thing. Don't know if we're actually going to be looking to go on the hards at all. But as I said, soft tyres, that's where you're going to get most knowledge from qualifying runs. And as it says statistically, 11 of the 12 Grand Prix, last 12 Grand Prix, one from the front row around this circuit, 9 have been from pole position. So that is definitely proving a point that we were making yesterday, and it does show why these cars are doing such things. Now, Aston Martin, neither of them actually set any laps, but they did do an outlap or two. Alonso is, no sorry, not Alonso, Stroll is once again out on track, but we have had Gasly and Doohan, the only ones to set lap times right now, and it does see Doohan 4 tenths ahead of their teammate at this stage of the session. But as I said earlier many times, it's too early to say, especially in the early stages of FP3, but FP3 later on, we will start to see the teams dial in their cars a little bit more, and they will be able to get up to speed and hopefully show a bit more of a representative time from what we'll see in qualifying and the race. Now we've got Gasly in, we're going to get Alonso back out again. Only these 4 cars seem to be on the data. Whether that is a mistake or not, I don't quite know, but it looks like it is completely legitimate. We just not got any other cars really out on track. It's a very, very strange visual, but I really have to believe it is just a data thing. There's no way that this many teams will have just ignored the first 15 minutes of the session, surely. Doing sliding around despite being fastest so far. Will the Astons be able to improve over them as Doohan goes into the pit lane alongside his teammate? As Alonso on track right now, feeling a bit better from what they felt yesterday as they described their car as the worst car they've driven, and the preparation for traffic was probably one of the worst they've ever experienced. Now they do feel better and they're in a bit of a better mood, and obviously if the driver's in a better mood they'll say better things, and that puts the team in a better mood as well. So hopefully they can have a good session to prepare for qualifying for one more time this year. Yesterday we saw it was already a 9/10 improvement from FP2 yesterday compared to last year's FP3. And FP3 you'd usually go quicker than you would in FP2. So it's pretty impressive, as I've said many times this season, how much these cars do improve by. Currently looking at the times, we've got a 25.5 and last year's pole position was a 23.4. We're not that far away considering we've only just started this session. That was set by Max Verstappen. Let's see if they can have another good performance this weekend at a circuit that they've won so much at. 4 times in a row? Yep, I think 4 times in a row. They've just missed out on matching Hamilton's record 5 times in a row. Would they be able to try and find that? I think they definitely could, even though they're on the back foot, they possibly could do so. It was Charles Leclerc in P2 that day last year as well. They're looking to try and get themselves up the order in qualifying, and they'll take that 10th place grid penalty, so starting a bit further back. And as I said, qualifying is pretty crucial around here, but just maybe they'll be able to find their form and get up the order. They are going to need to look at trying to get pole position if they want to give themselves the best chance in the race. Now we get a few more cars out on track. We've got Zhou, Magnussen, Hülkenberg and Leclerc as we talk about the man who does need to try and get that pole position. If I am going to bet any money on one driver getting pole position every weekend without knowing what team they'll be driving for, it would be Charles Leclerc. He is the guy to put it on pole. It's just whether they can do it. Do they have enough performance over the McLarens? The McLarens do seem to be the stronger team out of anyone on the grid so far, and definitely the public do believe that. We go to the community post that we released yesterday just so we could try and understand who people will think will be fastest at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and who will take pole position, etc. And it's McLaren by 79%. That is the prediction right here. Then we've got Red Bull, then Ferrari. So predicting that Red Bull will be the fastest, more likely than Ferrari, which is a bit of a surprise. Who will win the 2024 Constructors' Championship? Well, the votes are in, and it's 86% to McLaren and 14% to Ferrari. Looking at the statistics and the way everything is stacked against Ferrari, I don't think that's a bad prediction at all. Who will get pole position for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? Well, it's currently one vote, and it's 100% on Piastri. Maybe Piastri can do so. He's had it, I think he's had pole position already a couple of times, so I'm sure he can definitely have a go at getting that again. Now, Alonso had a little bit of a mistake, and I say a mistake, it's actually a bird in the middle of the circuit in the middle sector, sector 2. He had to dodge it and lost a little bit of time, unfortunately. So that's not going to help their session and their mood, as their mood was pretty poor yesterday. They want to try and be in the best mood possible today. Otherwise, yeah, they're not going to extract that performance out of that car. Still only 4 cars setting lap time so far, but we do now have, that is Bottas, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Leclerc, all setting laps as they continue in the session. And they're all on the soft tyre as well. Currently, the top 9 cars who either have already set laps or will be setting a lap time are all on the soft tyres. We've got a medium tyre for George Russell, as they did an out lap, but they've come straight back in. And then we've got a medium tyre for Hamilton and Sainz, who are out on track looking to try and set some lap times. You've got Tsunoda and Lawson both on the hard tyres as they try and set some lap times. That is the first of a few hard tyre runs that we've seen so far this weekend. I believe we have seen a few hard tyre runs, but just not many at all. So very interesting that they do this on the FP3 session. I would understand why they wouldn't do it yesterday in FP2, because it's more relative to the qualifying and race time, so it would make sense to really simulate that, whereas now not so much. So maybe you just want to get a slightly more useless tyre and get any data that you possibly can, even if it's not ideal circuit conditions compared to what they're expecting later on. In the meantime, Magnussen and Hulkenberg have topped the times, 4 tenths apart between the two teammates, Magnussen being the one ahead. Then we have Zhou and Bottas. Zhou scoring points over Bottas, Bottas scoring none. He is once again behind his teammate, but only by a very small margin this time around. 40 minutes on the clock. Stroll, and Alonso, Gasly all get bumped down, and actually Gasly gets bumped down an extra position behind Charles Leclerc. Now, looking at the circuit of Abu Dhabi, you go down the start-finish straight and there are walls close by, but then as you travel further through the circuit, the walls are pretty far away. Now, there are runoffs, but it is possible to still hit the barriers, but they are coated, the runoffs coated with a kind of paint that is a lot grippier, so it does mean it can slow the cars down a decent amount, a little bit like Paul Ricard, but then we do get to the final sector, and the walls do close up as you go through, I believe, the hotel section, or am I thinking of a different circuit? And that is where you could possibly have a bit of an off in the wall, as you saw Latifi do so in 2021, of course. That is where it's going to be most risky for a potential for a safety car. Will that happen? No, I don't think so. It might not. Could we see somebody maybe lose the rear and tap the barrier, maybe getting a puncture? That could be very possible. But regarding actually crashing, it is rare, and I don't think we'll see it this weekend. whether that be in qualifying or the race. But we'll find out, won't we? We'll find out if we do get a red flag in qualifying later on. We will be watching qualifying, so make sure you join the watch along. It'd be great to have you there. Norris and Piastri setting improvement times for themselves, or setting maybe even it was initial lap times on the soft tyres. They are on fresh tyres as well over the Haas's, but they still managed to beat the Haas's this time. Sorry, the McLarens this time, as Magnussen is still just under 3.5 tenths away from Norris. Norris is beaten Hulkenberg by 1/10. Verstappen and Perez out on track. They've set some lap times, P5 and P6. That's a little bit more like it from the pair. Hopefully they can get their issues sorted from yesterday. Max Verstappen, that is. Perez had a bit of an easier time, but they did get that extra session in FP1, whereas Max Verstappen did not do so. So they have a little bit more work to do in order to get fully used to the circuit. So far, we've had everybody out on track at least for an outlap. It's set from Colapinto, I believe. Yes, indeed. So Colapinto may be still having issues with that gearbox. So it was actually Sergio Perez going wide, and that's why they weren't able to get so close to Kevin Magnussen's top time and jumping behind Verstappen's medium tyre run. So that would explain it. I didn't even realise at the time. But yes, going wide and losing a lot of time right there. We got Albon improving, gaining time, and also Bottas to P9. Lots of people out on track at the moment. Also a few people in the pit lane just getting ready to go out one more time. We've got Colapinto on their way out of the pit lane. Good to see them finally getting the opportunity. Perez goes into the pit lane, maybe having a look at the car to see if there's any damage on that Red Bull after they did go wide, of course. No one's beaten that middle sector from Kevin Magnussen so far. It looks like it's a pretty quick one. But as we can see, lots of drivers are all out on the soft compound tyre, trying to get some relative pace runs, looking like it's going to be a more realistic view. As once again I did say earlier on, pole position around this circuit is very, very, very crucial, and they have to try and make sure that they get those top spots if they can do so. Charles Leclerc, most importantly, trying to be in that position. Ideally for Ferrari, it would be a Leclerc P1 and a Sainz P2, so that means that Sainz would inherit the lead before starting the race tomorrow due to Leclerc's 10-place grid penalty. I finally say grid penalty, 10-place grid penalty. I got it completely wrong earlier on, and I don't know what I said, but it didn't really make any sense. As I said, the hard tyres are out currently for both RB drivers, which is very, very interesting. We haven't really seen much hard tyre running at the moment. Sonoda goes to P15, quite far at the back, which is no surprise considering they are on the hardest compound tyre at the moment. They are only half a tenth away from Jack Doohan, although Jack Doohan's times were set a lot earlier in this session, where Track Evolution wouldn't have kicked in as such, but also you've got a brand new driver who's trying to get used to the car, getting used to the weekends. It's a very interesting strategy from Alpine. It does prepare Jack for next season, of course, nice and early, which is going to be great for them. But regarding the Constructors' Championship this year, it doesn't really make too much sense, because all of a sudden they're only going to have one car kind of not guaranteed in the fight, but likely to be in the fight to maintain that championship position. And it's not like the gap is massive, so if anything crazy did happen, and if you see that the Haas's are looking pretty quick, which they are, so anything could change and they could regain that back. Consider if you're Esteban Ocon, that's probably not the worst idea. Even though you're not driving the car, your team for next season is going to finish higher, and they'll have a bit more money with their team, which would be, I'm sure, quite nicely taken from the Haas team. They'll still get a decent amount of time in the wind tunnel, as they will be P6 if they do get that position over Alpine. It does mean they get slightly less time in the wind tunnel, but I'm going to be honest, Haas at this stage, I believe they're probably more interested in taking the extra millions of dollars for championship position rather than the wind tunnel time, with the form that they've currently got as well. And just to clarify, that is a 5-point difference that Alpine are ahead of Haas. So it is really not that much. As I said, if anything does happen, anything goes wrong or right for either team, then it could sway, or it could be safe for Gasly and the Alpine team. Maybe Jack Doohan will completely blow it out the water and do a very, very good job, and they're just making sure that they don't crash the car ready for qualifying later on. That could be a possible strategy that Jack Doohan is using. Let's hope that that is the case. I'm not putting them down in any way at all. It's just going to be taking them a while to get used to the car, so I don't blame them, to be honest, for that one. Currently, not really seeing too many improvements. P11 to P16 all in the pit lane, P17 to P20 all out on track, P17 and 19 on the hards. We've got P10 and P7 on the medium compound tyre. That is Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen on exactly the same age as well, so their pace is kind of sort of relative to one another. Their best laps, however, are 25.1 and a 24.9 for Max Verstappen, who's just gone purple in that middle sector. So despite being on the slower compounder tyre, is doing a bit of a flyer right now and cooking quite nicely. They are only marginally away from Lando Norris's improved first sector, as Lando Norris tries to go once again on this scrub set of tyre to see if they can improve their current lap time, which it looks like they will be doing so. Verstappen with that purple middle sector and a pretty quick first sector as well, with a PB in the third, goes to P2, 2.5 tenths still away from Kevin Magnussen, and currently Haas taking that top spot for quite a long time, and they're going to be pretty happy with that one, I would assume. Pretty happy indeed. Problems for Carlos Sainz, it seems. A bit of a smoky Ferrari, it says. Engine having a possible problem, and that is just making Ferrari even more Oh, that's tough because it does take away from the championship battle a little bit there, and they're not going to be happy at all. It would be such a shame to see the Ferrari team have more penalties, grid penalties. It would take away, as I said, from the championship fight. But if it's the way it goes, it's the way it goes. Weirdly, Carlos Sainz stays out on track. So yeah, that's an interesting one. But oh well. I guess they're happy to stay out on track despite these issues. Maybe there isn't an engine problem and it is just a puff of smoke that came out of the car anyway. But we could possibly see Carlos back into the pit lane very soon, and that could be possibly the end of their session, as they do go slowly through turn 9, but I believe they were just allowing Russell to pass through. Russell and Hamilton both on the soft tyres now as they improve to P5 and P9. That is a 25.1 and a 24.9 for Russell, then Hamilton, as Hamilton is the one ahead. They've managed to find a bit of form in their final weekend for Mercedes, it seems, ahead of their teammate, which hasn't been the case in most recent cases throughout weekends. Yes, they seem to be possibly the faster car in Las Vegas, but George had a lot more to lose and not so much to gain, so they were able to back off and secure the pace a little bit more so they didn't crash into the wall. So you never really know what would have happened if Hamilton did qualify a little bit higher in the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Would he have possibly won it? I think he probably could have, but I don't know if it would have been a breeze as he stated it would have been. But it's a little bit of showmanship, and it did make everyone quite, I guess you could say, excited. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes for them later on in the session, and of course for qualifying, their final qualifying for the Mercedes team, and quite possibly their final qualifying session with the Mercedes engine. Carlos Sainz to P2 despite having their engine issues that it seemed like just a few moments ago. So the lap time from Carlos Sainz was a medium tyre run. Verstappen also on that medium tyre. So we do know that the P2 and P3 spot will be able to improve a lot more later on, whereas the current P1 spot held by Magnussen still is on that soft tyre. So currently looking fastest, it shouldn't be necessarily for that long, shouldn't be for the entire session. But Hamilton did improve ahead of Magnussen's teammate Hulkenberg, who goes down to P6. Still in the pit lane, as both Haas's seem to be so. Purple first sector now for Verstappen, who is looking to possibly take the fastest time in the session regardless of what tyre they are on. 8 lap old medium tyres, currently 2.5 tenths away from Kevin Magnussen, and they are finding some pretty decent pace right there. Just under a tenth ahead of Magnussen alone in the first sector, but they'll travel through the third sector and hopefully we can get to see what they'll be doing compared to that Haas car. Carlos Sainz completes another lap, but not improving this time around. We've got Verstappen going slower in that middle sector, so despite going purple for a moment, will not be going to the top spot of the session this time around. And that could possibly see Max Verstappen into the pit lane as they go through turn 16. Yep, into the pit lane, as I expected. So, looks like currently that Ferrari and Red Bull have a bit more pace to give. I mean, so does McLaren, to be honest. But it looks like Carlos Sainz doesn't have any engine issues, as we feared for a few moments, that would make the championship a lot easier for McLaren to be able to secure. Not that I don't want McLaren necessarily to win it, but I just want a nice close battle, because that would be very, very entertaining for the race tomorrow, of course. Mercedes having issues, it seems. Russell thinks the car is fine, but just having a few issues with pace. Hamilton is wondering why they are losing time. Just scratching their heads. Not exactly ideal. As we've got a lot of people in the pit lane at the moment. 20 minutes on the clock, then we'll hit the 18-minute mark. And what we're looking at there is a basic simulation of what it would be like to have a quali session. Of course, 18 minutes for Q1 later on today. If they can do basically a quali simulation, that would be great for their chances later on. Now, you would probably pit before you get to the end of the session. You would pit to go onto a set of medium tyres so you could come out and do a practice start. That's what I'm going to expect a lot of drivers to be doing. But more importantly, looking at the qualifying runs. We've seen so many soft tyre runs so far this weekend, but I think they will go once again, and this time it will be the more important runs that we'll get to see, which will be pretty awesome, as we would see the cars go to their maximum potential. And there is no hiding, it's not pre-season, it is the final race of the season, where these cars will only be used one more time, and they will not be used again unless in a couple of years when they are used for testing, but they're not actually going to be used again for racing, so they may as well go full pelt. Verstappen has run wide, but still P3. As that would explain why they went so slow through sector 2. So not exactly ideal. We will be back in a minute. Now we reach the qualifying simulation timing marks under 18 minutes now. This is where I personally expect the cars to go a little bit quicker if they can. We've had Alex Albon come out on brand new softs. Let's see what they can do. Currently taking that to the top spot. Will they be able to hold that? I don't quite know. 24.378 is their lap time. They are the one to beat. Setting the first qualifying simulation run. Will they be able to hold that? I've said that 3 times in about 10 seconds. I need to calm down on what I'm saying here. I've somehow run out of breath as well. Charles Leclerc is currently on a scrub set of softs, but still out on track. Alonso as well. In a very similar situation, just 1 lap fresher tyres. Those are the only 3 cars out on track as everybody goes back into the pit lane to prepare themselves for this final simulation. 16 minutes on the clock. Just over a quarter of an hour to go to finish off the final practice session. That will be had for Kevin Magnussen. That will be had for Carlos Sainz at Ferrari. That will be had for Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. That will be had for Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou. And for now, Colapinto as well. As I was talking about yesterday, this is crunch time now for Franco Colapinto. They have to try and get some good performance in this weekend if they want to make sure that they have a chance of getting into Formula 1 in 26 and beyond. If they don't do so, they have another opportunity by doing very well in the F2 Championship, and for me personally, I believe they'd have to either get P1 or P2. P3 may be possible. But if they really do want to try and take a seat in F1 in 2026, they need to try and give themselves the best chance by performing well here. Not crashing is going to be a must, but at the same time, getting as close as they can to their teammate and maybe even outperforming their teammate is going to be the also not secondary, but very close secondary target, if you get what I mean. They've got to try and make sure that they get that performance. Currently, Alex Albon only just under a tenth ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who's once again out on track at the moment. And that is, of course, on the fresh tyres for Albon, whereas Magnussen's time was set much earlier in the session. A 24.3 for Albon, but Magnussen will be looking to try and beat that if they can do so, as the Haas's seem to be pretty quick so far this weekend. If we look at qualifying last time around in 2023, a 23.4 was the fastest time. We are 9 tenths away from that, which is a surprise, but it is because partly the track temperatures are a fair bit hotter compared to what we will get in qualifying, so those tyres are going to be struggling a little bit more. For FP3 last season, we saw a 24.4 be set by George Russell. So we've only just beaten it, actually, with Alex Albon and a 24.418. So Magnussen wouldn't have even beaten the FP3 lap time from last season. So the cars aren't going as quick as I thought they would. By this time in the session, I thought they would go a little bit quicker. Still quicker than last season, of course, but it's really going to be qualifying where we get to see those cars work at the temperatures that they will be set up for, of course. That would have been a very useful session to do such a thing. Albon went into the pit lane. Colapinto has come out as all of these cars try to get their final soft tyre runs ready to go and go for their qualifying simulations. You've got Verstappen currently on the soft tyre as well. They're looking to try and set a quick lap time if they can. That would be great to see, as they're currently P4 on a medium tyre lap run. That's doing to P2. That's a half a tenth away from Alexander Albon. Soft tyres for them, fresh softs, are going to be nice and representative. That is second place for them at the moment. Magnussen is going to start their next lap to try and take back that top spot if they can do so temporarily. They do have a few cars looking to try and improve. However, that is going to be Gasly to P2, just ahead of their teammate, but just behind Alex Albon, splitting the two. Final purple sector for them it was, though. Anybody else going to be going faster? Well, it's going to be Oscar Piastri. So I do hate to inform Kevin Magnussen, but I don't think they're going to reach the top spot once again, as Piastri is going very quickly. Russell, in the meantime, has actually gone faster than anyone by 0.3 of a second, but Piastri across the line, and it is going to be ahead by 6.5 tenths. That is a massive, massive advantage that McLaren seem to have so far this weekend. That is pretty impressive. They topped the time, did McLaren, in FP2 yesterday. Not quite so convincingly in FP1, I don't believe. I can't quite remember. But FP2, it was definitely a good effort from them in the second practice session. I just quickly double check what we saw yesterday for FP1, and it was Charles Leclerc top the times, then Lando Norris, then Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Gasly, Hulkenberg, with, where was Oscar Piastri? Nope, they weren't in the session, and I remember that now, as it was a rookie driver test. Now, looking at what the public are expecting for later on, who will be fastest this weekend? Still McLaren by a long way. Who will take pole position? Still only one vote, and it is for Oscar Piastri. So currently there's a 100% chance that Oscar Piastri is going to get pole position today. We're going to get McLaren 87% more likely to win the Constructors compared to Ferrari 13%. That we'll check that later on just to make sure. We'll see what everyone will be doing. But so far, they are getting to the 23s. We have beaten the FP2 lap time by a tenth now, but would they be able to get anywhere near the qualifying lap times? They're going to have to make it... sorry, actually, no. They've absolutely destroyed the FP2 lap times. No, they haven't. 24... Yes, no? Have they? 23.5. Yeah, no, they've done it by a tenth. And they've now, in turn, beaten the pole time from last season, just about, with Oscar Piastri there at the top of the times. Lando Norris is almost 2 tenths away from their teammate. Then we've got Verstappen 2 tenths away from them. Russell to P4. Magnussen did improve, but in the end didn't improve ahead of his teammate by the smallest of margins. Magnussen really has picked it up in the final part of this season, but it's just a little bit too late. And yeah, this time they are marginally behind their teammates. Sonoda to P7. Albon's time eventually got demoted down to P8 and now 9 as Hamilton goes to P7. Gasly doing in P10 and 11. Bottas, Lawson, Sainz to show. Perez, Leclerc, Colapinto, Alonso and Stroll. Leclerc and Sainz not having, well, I say that, Leclerc not having the best session so far, as the troubles continue. To P8 only is their lap time, 7 tenths away from those that they are trying to beat for the Constructors' Championship. Now, the story, as we have 8 minutes on the clock left to go, the story this weekend is kind of not only with the championships and the Constructors, but also slightly to a few drivers' battles, of course, with P2 in the championship, but also the Mercedes drivers as well. We do have to slightly focus on the off-track action, as, you know, if you don't make friends off-track, then you could possibly make no friends on track, and that would be with George Russell and Max Verstappen. If they start the Grand Prix close together tomorrow, then it could be very, very interesting off the line. So, would that mix the order up it could possibly do so. 7 minutes on the clock for practice, though. We won't be getting the qualifying grid order until later on today, and I cannot wait for that. It's going to be a good one for one more time in 2024. 7 minutes on the clock, and we're getting some more prep laps ready to go as people are going to be ready to try and improve. Verstappen is on their way out of the pit lane on a scrub set of tyres, but they are going to be looking to try and see if they can beat the two McLarens, as they did so last weekend in Qatar. They took that pole position. This Russell was the next car behind them, and then they took the win ahead of Lando Norris. Of course, Lando Norris was close by and maybe could have had the chance to fight if they didn't get that penalty, but I'm going to be honest with you, I think Verstappen would have won it anyway. I don't think Norris was going to be getting past at any time, at any point, unless their tyres would have been absolutely mega towards the end, because that McLaren does seem to be a late race pace merchant. But yeah, I still don't believe that there would have been anything changing about that result in the end. Lots of traffic in the final sector. Stroll goes through, and they've got to try and navigate their way around Norris, Leclerc, but I think Leclerc might try and start their lap before Stroll gets behind them. I say that they're going to go through the penultimate corner and they will have to back off, or they're going to impede them. Hamilton is either in the pit lane or they are going to impede. They do go straight into the pit lane, so they're not going to be worrying about Stroll. Leclerc will start a lap. Alonso's going to be behind them. It's actually going to be another prep lap, it looks like, for Leclerc, although Alonso seems to have backed off. And Leclerc now goes for their lap. Whether that has been an impeding moment, I don't quite know. As Alonso goes to P17, they did improve, however, but not any further up the order, as the two Astons aren't going to be exactly happy with their performance so far, although Alonso was in a better mood as they started the session today. Just not maybe representing that mood in the times after all. Verstappen, in the meantime, did go to P3, and they are currently 4 tenths behind Piastri, who currently, according to our predictions from the public on the YouTube channel, are showing that Piastri is going to get pole. And that's not looking like a bad prediction so far. 100% chance of getting pole position for Oscar Piastri, and he's 2 tenths ahead of his teammate. That's a pretty good effort. Not many improvers towards the last few minutes of this session, and Ferrari are really not happy with their performance. Will they be able to find any slight adjustments before they get into qualifying and get to park firmly, of course, ready for the race? They've got a few things to do. They've got some work to do. 7 tenths behind is Charles Leclerc, and 4 tenths behind is Carlos Sainz in P4. Directly behind Verstappen, still up there, but they really need Leclerc to try and get that pole position, because they want to try and get them as far up the order as possible. That's because of the 10-place grid penalty, so they will finish, or start the race, sorry, 10 places behind wherever they qualify. Three and a half minutes on the clock. Will we get any more improvements? As prep laps would have been done, Verstappen into the pit lane, likely to go and put on a set of medium tyres if they want to do a practice start. Same for Piastri, Norris and Russell. Zhou crosses the line. Leclerc, let's see if they are going to improve in that first sector, if they're going for another push lap here. 17.2. They are pushing, but they're not improving. They need to find a bit more if they do want to improve. Unless it's just going to be another attempt at a qualifying simulation, but not necessarily a look at actually getting an improvement. They go ahead of Magnussen into turn 6. And they'll cross the sector line very, very shortly, and we'll get to see what they want to do. Whether they complete that lap or not. Leclerc sends it into turn 12 with a lot of speed as they go through the final sector. But they're not improving once again, so they're just looking to try and set a somewhat quick lap time. Unless they can improve in that final sector, it is not really going to make a difference. 2 minutes on the clock. There they go across the line. They do actually improve overall as they get a bit more time in that final sector, marginally ahead of Lewis Hamilton up to P8. Good effort there. Having a first and second sector that was competitive, although not necessarily quicker than their previous, but they do improve on that final sector time, which was good to see. Still the top three currently in the pit lane, as Verstappen is actually going to change that as I speak. Carlos Sainz improves in that final sector, is very close to the back of Verstappen. Hamilton goes immediately ahead once again of Charles Leclerc, but this time goes to P3 and is incredibly, I was going to say incredibly close to Piastri. I was reading it wrong. They're actually 2 tenths away from Oscar Piastri and almost 4 tenths away from, 2 tenths away from Lando Norris and almost 4 tenths away from Oscar Piastri. So everybody has a little bit more time to try and catch up if they do want to compete with those McLarens, but those McLarens are just seeming to be a little bit unstoppable. That being said, they could stop themselves. Apparently, the McLaren is pretty hard to drive today, but also, when McLaren has had the pressure piled onto them, they have had made mistakes, and we saw that a little bit in qualifying, although it didn't really affect them on Saturday. On Friday for sprint qualifying, they messed up their final runs, and they got split by George Russell. So, yeah, lost that big time there, and they didn't get any car on the front row into qualifying again on Saturday. So not that it was such a mess up necessarily on setting their final runs, they just weren't as quick. So they do need to try and make sure that they keep composed when it does actually matter. There is the clock. Now the session finishes, and it will be Hülkenberg who will take the checkered flag first, and that will be possibilities for drivers to do practice starts, but they're all on the soft tyres out on track. Everyone is currently out on track. There is a lot of traffic, there's a lot of cars going slowly. I don't know if we're actually going to get anybody impeding or improving or anything. Alonso and Stroll are going for push laps here, as they are pretty close on the timings, although Alonso is ahead by a tenth in that first sector. They've got a little bit of traffic to try and navigate through. Stroll's got to pass Hamilton, and then they will be good to go to continue this lap. Will they be able to improve on the final sector and improve their lap time overall? P19, but now it's P17. They push themselves ahead of their teammate, who goes around the final corner and is going to look to take that back immediately and some, as they push ahead of Bottas and Lawson to P15, a 24.4. But still, as these temperatures are pretty hot around here in Yas Marina, it's not such a representative track condition from what we'll see later on. So these cars are going to be going a lot quicker, and it's going to be very, very impressive to see for sure. Let's see how that one goes later on, of course. Russell, Norris, Albon finished the session. They crossed the line, and that is going to be almost everyone done, apart from Doohan and Colapinto, who are coming through the final sector now to finish off. And then we will get to see practice starts, I do believe, initially from Hülkenberg and Magnussen, unless they go straight into the pit lane. Maybe it's a junior category thing that you're not allowed to do practice starts at this point, but they are going around the final corner, and they are going to be doing practice starts after all. Doohan and Colapinto finished their session, and it was only improvements from Alonso and Stroll at the very end of that session. Piastri is on top, Norris in P2 by 2 tenths. Then we've got Hamilton, who is quite far behind both McLarens overall. Then Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Russell, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Leclerc struggling behind. Perez finishing the top 10. Then we've got Tsunoda, Albon, Gasly, Doohan, Alonso, Bottas, Lawson, Stroll, Zhou, and Colapinto. Colapinto continues to have issues. Alex Albon finding a bit of pace despite struggling earlier on yesterday, of course. It is both Alpines nice and close to one another. So well done to Jack Doohan to get the pace up and ready for later on. I cannot wait. I've maybe doubted them a little bit too much too early on. We'll see what they can do. Qualifying, who will get pole later on? Have we had any updates here on the YouTube channel to see what the pole will be for a potential for pole position? It's still currently 100% for Oscar Piastri, and it's looking like it could go that way for sure later on. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you a bit later for qualifying. Do not miss it. The final time. It's going to be good. In a bit.